We work with people who are being arrested every day, who are being detained in Tacoma, one of the largest immigration jails in the country. And the family separation that is happening, the toll that it's having on our communities, the mental health toll that it's having on our communities is just something to a level that we had not seen before. I've been part of Northwest Immigrant Rights Project for over 18 years, and I can tell you that the level and the way that law enforcement are ensuring civil immigration enforcement is unprecedented.
People don't always think about gun violence prevention, including law enforcement and their enforcement of gun violence laws, but it's really, really important.
Interactions with law enforcement for our client communities are scary. A local law enforcement can be potentially a federal law enforcement, and so for our communities having that understanding that standards will be followed and that people in those positions of power will follow the law is important.
5974, the Law Enforcement Leadership Bill that we passed through the legislature and was signed into law, is a really important piece of legislation that builds on a history in Washington State of working toward having transparency with law enforcement, building trust with law enforcement, ensuring that we can have the best relationships between community and law enforcement as possible. The other thing that Senate Bill 5974 does that is really important is to require the enforcement of laws that are passed at the state level. In particular, that includes gun violence prevention laws, immigration laws, as well as laws around choice. This is about ensuring standards for our law enforcement that will make our communities safer and build the trust between communities and law enforcement.
It's about treating people well. It's about dignity. It's about commitment. It's about pride. But it's also about leadership. And leadership is about leadership, and leadership is about holding yourself to the same high standards that you hold your subordinates to. And that was one of the first things I learned during my time as a state trooper. Everybody that I worked for and with, they wanted to be held to the same standards that they held us to. If we were going to go out there and they expected us to treat people with dignity and respect, that's the example that they set. So it comes down to accountability. They know that we need accountability at all levels of law enforcement.
We knew what our communities were experiencing. We knew what our communities needed, and having this bill passed and be signed was a success for all of our communities, and it was a benefit generally, not only for us as an immigrant services provider, but also for the community at large.
I never worked on a piece of legislation that has had so much support.
This goes back to the power of partnership. Like all of the organizations that were in partnership around this bill were directly speaking with their members, their constituents, and those constituents felt strongly enough about it that they were willing to have direct communication with their elected legislators, have direct communication with the governor. And again, that's how we make change. And it is the power of the people and the power of partnership.
The campaign was successful because the partners who showed up brought various perspectives of communities that we all serve. And it was important to really show legislators, and when it came to the signing, the governor, to understand that these organizations represent communities that are part of Washington State.
We would not have passed this legislation had it not been for those partnerships. This is how we make things happen. None of us get this stuff done by ourselves. It's about partnerships. It's about working in the communities, and that's how we get things done in Olympia.